After seeing the artifact of the slave trade, I wanted to understand the people and places behind this history. So I continued my journey to one of the most important slave trade locations in Badagry. My next destination was the Chief Seriki Williams Abass National Monument. Chief Seriki Williams Abass was one of the most important figures connected to the slave trade in Badagry. His compounds give visitors a deeper look into how slave trade system operated. Inside the compound, our guide explained the history of Chief Seriki, the goods that were exchanged for slaves, and how the trading system worked. During this period, different items were used in exchange for enslaved Africans. The compound contains historical buildings, artifacts, and places that showed how this trade was organized.
The compound we are is called the Brazilian Badagry. This is the spelling right here, and the compound here serves as the slave cell. So this is where slaves were kept before being transported out to the point of no return. The man that owned the compound was also a slave. So when he was 6, he was captured by a black man named Abass. Slaves don't bear their own names, they bear the master's name or the name the master wished to give them. So when he was 6, he was captured by a black man named Abass. Abass was a slave trader from Dahomey, and Dahomey is known today as Benin Republic. So when Abass captured him, he took him down to Dahomey, where he was working for him as a domestic slave. But later, the black master, he buys and sells slaves, so he sold him to Williams, a white man. So William bought him and took him to Brazil. When they got there, he also made him a domestic slave. Later, the white master William decided to use him for the trade, so he sent him to school and brought him back on a condition. So the condition was for this man to be buying and sending the slaves to his master in Brazil. He accepted, and the man built this compound that we are for him. We have 40 rooms in the compound, and in each of the rooms, 40 slaves were kept. So the minimum of slaves kept in this compound was 1,600, and they were being shipped out every 3 to 4 months to the point of no return, where the slave ship would be waiting for them. So the slave man, the owner of the compound, Seriki, actually accepted. He did the trade until it was abolished in 1888. So he was buying and sending the slave to his master in Brazil. The last name he had, Seriki, was a title given to him. Seriki in Badagry means head of the Muslims. So when he became this, due to his involvement in Islam, he got that title of a Seriki, which was the head. Until date, the family of this man still retains the title of the Seriki. So while we are going around, and at your back there, we have some of the items that were used in exchange of slaves. So then slaves were not sold or bought with money. They did trade by barter, and the reason was because they couldn't spend our money. We spent cowries, and cowries was of no value to the white masters. So they had to do trade by barter, exchanging people for some of these items. So the value of an umbrella then was 40 slaves. And we have the surviving umbrella here, 40 people for one umbrella. The cannon, the big one for 100 slaves, while the small one for 40 slaves. A bottle of alcohol for 10 slaves. We have a bottle from 1873 in the museum, which was also exchanged for 10 people. The mirror and the bead, they had to bargain. The highest bidder gets the mirror or the bead. Ceramic bowl, known as breakable plates, for 10 slaves, and the dengon for 40 slaves.
One of the most emotional parts of this visit was seeing the slave prisons. These were the places where captured Africans were kept before they are taken to the slave market and eventually transported away. The conditions were extremely difficult. People were kept in small spaces, waiting for the future they never choose. We also saw the well where slaves were allowed to drink water only once a day. Standing here made me imagine the suffering and fear that people experience in this very place.
The compound was built in 1840, so it's 185 years old, and it was built with bricks just like this. So let's see the cell. The man that owned the compound, known as Seriki Williams Abass, as we know, once a slave is bought, the slave has to be registered. So we have the certificate of his registration here as a domestic servant. You can see here, William Abass of Badagry, domestic servant. So he was sold. So the iron driller was used to brand the slaves. So each masters can identify their slaves. So whenever they go over there, the slaves in this compound were owned by different masters. So apart from his master, he also kept slaves for other masters. So for them to identify them, they use the iron driller to brand them, so the masters can identify them at their destination. So the shackles for the hands and the legs, they will lock them together and they'll be like this in the picture here. So there'll be chains on the neck, the waist, the hands and the legs, and the chains are always connected to each other. So they have to be on a single file just like this when they're walking to the point of no return. So this is the size of the room, but the first room here is not for the slaves. The inner room is where they were going to be staying. So there used to be an entrance door right here, which is going to be locked. So the 40 people were meant to stay at the inner room, and this little ventilation is there for them for 3 to 4 months. This is the full length of the room for 40 people. So if you can see, just from there to there, for 40 people, and they'll be here for 3 to 4 months. Every day in the cell, a slave dies. Because the room was very small, there was heat. That's the little ventilation for 40 people. So when they are here, the master will lock the door, and if they locked it, if a slave needs to pee or poo, it was done in the cell because the master will not open it for them. So it was very unhealthy, and a lot of slaves died while they were here. So for the ones that survived, when the ship is around, that's when they ship them out to the point of no return, where the ship will be waiting. So while they also stay here, they eat once a day and they drink water once in a day. And here we have some items that were exchanged for slaves. Those are the ceramic bowls. Each were exchanged for 10 people. We have 5 there. So 50 slaves were exchanged for those 5 bowls. And this is the money we talked about, the cowries, the money we spent then. Those were owned by Seriki Abass, the owner of the compound. And this is the skettle for 10 slaves, and also the bottle from 1873 that was exchanged for 10 people.
We also saw the well where slaves were allowed to drink water only once a day. Standing here made me imagine the suffering and fear that people experience in this very place.
The well was dug in 1847 by the slaves, and it's also meant for the slaves. So they were meant to be, it's meant to be fetched out once a day. When we get to the next page, you see a pot. There was a pot, a very big pot that they fetch out the water for the slaves. So in the pot, the slaves were meant to drag and drink from the well once in a day. So if that water is gone, it's not like there's no water here. There's always water in the well. The reason they give them less water and food is because they believe if they eat well and drink a lot of water, they will be more strong and they could revolt against the master. So this is just to suppress them, to reduce them, so that they will not have strength to revolt or fight against the master, maybe on the ship or when they get to their destination. Over here we have the court. So this is the court of Chief Seriki Abass. This is where he passed judgment to people and towns he dominated on. Seriki, after the trade was abolished, he also worked with the British. Due to his education, he could speak in Portuguese, English, Dutch, Spanish, and Yoruba. So because he could translate between the whites and the blacks, he was also employed, and later he became a chief. So that's it over there, SCID. It was a senior chief in Ilaro district. So that was his court, and when he died, he was buried here. Seriki died 11th June 1919. That is 106 years ago by the family. But before he died, he founded 2 towns. He founded Idogo and Ayetoro town in Ogun State in 1902 for the displaced people that had nowhere to go to settle. So he founded those towns, and he controlled all from here to those places. When he died, he was buried there by the family, the Islamic community, and the Brazilians. And also his last child was buried beside him here. The last child was born in 1913, he died in 1987. So the last child was 6 when his own father died. His last child was 6 when his own father died. He grew up and also became a Seriki just like his father. Like I said earlier, the descendants of this man still gets the title of a Seriki, which is the head of the Muslims in Badagry till date, and they are the people that occupy the compound that we currently are.
From Chief Seriki's compound, I continue to the first story building in Nigeria. This historic building connects deeply with the story of Christianity, education, and the end of the slave trade. Here we learned about Bishop Ajayi Crowther and the role of European missionaries during this period. Our guide explained how this building became an important part of Nigeria's history.
So here is the room of the first African bishop called Bishop Samuel Ajayi Crowther. I believe we all know his story.
Yeah.
We know how he got into slavery and he got a freedom from his master, and master sent him to school. So here's this room. This was where he stays when he was alive. And here we have the first Bible in Nigeria, both in English and Yoruba version. The English version here came in 1842 by Reverend Henry Townsend, and the Yoruba version was translated by Bishop Samuel Ajayi Crowther in 1845. Right there is a picture of the school that Bishop Samuel went to at Sierra Leone, called the Furabe College, as the first black man in that school that year. And the middle here we have the landmark of this vicinity in 1846. At our back there we have his hanger where he hang his clothes back then, over there. And the corner here is the shoe rack where he keeps his shoes.
Near the building is the famous CMS well, also known as the Miracle Well. This well was dug by missionaries and has become a place where many visitors come because of the stories and beliefs connected to its water. I took a moment to drink from the well before visiting the area where the original church once stood. Standing there, I reflected on everything I had seen and said a prayer. Badagry history is filled with stories of pain, survival, faith, and change. But my journey was not over. In the final episode, I followed the last route enslaved Africans took before leaving their homeland forever. I traveled through the original slave route to the point of no return.